Your restricted grants should be helping pay for administrative costs, but you have to build the bridge. And also we need to note different funders have different rules for this. So we need to check your actual grant agreements here to make sure that you're in compliance. But we have two kind of general methods for recovering operating costs. One is direct cost allocation. So for example, if your executive director spends 20% of their time overseeing that mentoring program, 20% of their salary and payroll taxes and benefits should be charged directly against that restricted grant. If your mentoring program uses 2 rooms in your office space, a proportional percentage of rent, utilities, and occupancy costs can be allocated directly to the grant. The other method is using an indirect cost rate. Right now, the federal de minimis rate is 15%. So under federal and state funding rules, you're legally entitled to recover indirect costs. Even if you don't have a federally negotiated indirect cost rate, you can almost always write that 15% minimis rate into the grant budget. It means 15% of that grant can go straight towards covering general administrative overhead. In the example on the slide, we're using 10%, which was the old rate. So $45,000 of that $450,000 grant could go against the general operating column. Look what happens when we do that right. Instead of letting $130,000 in overhead sitting entirely on the unrestricted side, they work with their finance team to compliantly allocate $35,000 of shared administrative and facility costs to the grant. And suddenly their unrestricted deficit drops from $30,000 in the red to actually a manageable $5,000 surplus. They didn't have to raise any extra money. They just learned how to distribute their costs strategically and compliantly.
From an audit perspective, I do want to emphasize compliantly. As auditors, we do look at what you're allocating to each grant of overhead, but we can't accept like just a ballpark estimate or a finger in the wind estimate. You can't just guess at the end of the year and charge a specific percentage. So you must have a documented systematic cost allocation methodology. So this means either tracking actual time that your employees spend via timesheets on each program, or a documented methodology of the estimate, how you're estimating the time that your folks are working on specific projects. Another way is to allocate rent based on the actual square footage utilized by the program, if that's something that's easily estimable. And when you have a clear written allocation policy, auditors can test it, verify it, and discuss its reasonability. So that should be, your methodology should always be reviewed periodically and revised based on the activities undertaken by the organization, because those can change over time. And this also keeps you fully compliant with federal uniform guidelines, and then any audits that you have to undergo for different funders or because states have compliance rules, but also while ensuring that your unrestricted cash is preserved.
I love that, Rachel. It turns compliance from a set of restricted rules into a strategic system that protects the organization. For leaders tuning in who want to go back to their desks today and make sure they're utilizing these cost recovery strategies, here are 3 questions you can ask your bookkeeper or your finance team. One is, are we compliantly allocating a proportional percentage of administrative, executive, and facility overhead directly to restricted program budgets? Question 2, what percentage of our year-to-date revenue is unrestricted operational runway versus restricted grant funding? And question 3, do we have restricted grant expenses that we've paid for but haven't officially released or matched on the P&L yet? If your bookkeeping team isn't doing monthly releases of restricted assets, your P&L is going to look like a roller coaster, because you might show huge surpluses one month and massive deficits the next. It can really mask actual operational trends.